Now, I'm sure that all of you are familiar with this particular story about Jesus curing the demon-possessed men, or in Mark, the demon-possessed man, and also then that Jesus allows the demons to enter into the swine. That's what they asked, and Jesus allows it. He didn't command them. And then we have the demons going into the pigs, and then the pigs rush off over the cliff, and then they're all destroyed. And then at the end of the story, rather than the people being appreciative that now this man has been cured of his lifelong and possibly lifelong illness or possession, instead, what do they say? Please, Jesus, just leave. You've already done enough damage. So what I want to talk about today is the ending of that story, that piece where they ask him to leave, because we've got two really disturbing things happening here. Number one, Jesus allows the destruction, and we read in Matthew and we read in Mark and certainly in Luke that over 2,000 swine had perished after the demons entered. So why would Jesus allow 2,000 of God's creation to die? And then secondly, why do the people seem so ungrateful about this man now, who is an image and likeness of God, who is now cured? And that's what I'd like to talk about today. So I guess first what we should look at is, why are the pigs there in the first place? And I remember after somebody told me about that, they said, don't you find that odd that, Jews typically do not eat, just as the Muslims do not eat pork. So what are they doing with pigs? Where does that come from? So we have to look at the area. And this particular area was in the northern region of Israel, in the area of, or the northern region of what was Decapolis. Okay, so the city of 10. So in this region were mostly Gentiles. Now, possibly some Jews that were living there, or what we see as Hellenized Jews. And the thinking is that there was quite a market for swine that was not necessarily Jewish, but for the Gentiles of that region. And this was probably something like today's farmers, cattle farmers, or pig farmers would do today, that they were looking to sell these goods. So that begins to give us some insight into why they were so mad, because here they've raised these 2,000 swine, and in the blink of an eye, they're all gone. So what some scholars believe, and the Orthodox Church would support this, is that the reason that Jesus allows now the destruction of these swine for the salvation of the one man is not only so that the demons would leave the man, but also, equally important, is that we believe that these people were so caught up in the marketplace, making a dollar, being focused on selling and money becoming an idol, that Jesus does this to kind of shake them out of now their spiritual funk. Because even though the man was saved, there doesn't seem to be anything in the Gospels that indicate that they were in any way grateful or happy that this man has now been released. Their first and primary focus was on what the economy of the situation was at that particular time. Secondly, what we need to look at, and unfortunately we have to go to the writings of Mark and Luke, because it's not present in Matthew. After now the man possessed by demons is cured, he approaches Jesus, he runs to Jesus, because he's getting ready now with his disciples to sail now to the other side, and he begs him and says, I want to accompany you because I've been enlightened by what's happened here, and I want to now follow you. Typically, Jesus' response has been what's called the messianic secret. What I mean by that, or what scholars mean by that, is that normally after somebody was healed, then Jesus would command them and say, don't tell anybody about what it is that you have seen or who has healed you. So he wanted to keep that a secret. Here in this writing, and again, we have to pick it up from Mark and from Luke, he tells the man, no, I want you can't follow me because your mission is I want you to go back and tell the people of Decapolis what the Lord has done on this day and how he has shown mercy on you. So he specifically commands him to tell the people of the city that it is I, Jesus, now who have healed you. So this is in stark contrast to what we typically have seen Jesus saying. If we put now these two pieces together, now we can somewhat understand what the gospel writers are trying to convey to us. Orthodox theology, from its very practical nature, realizes that many times when we are caught up in our day-to-day activities, trying to pay for a house, working hard, trying to get our kids through college, making sure that there's enough food on the table, what ends up happening is that we tend to focus more on those things, and then our spiritual life suffers. So what Orthodox theology sees in this writing is that this is now suffering that has been brought on by our Lord to kind of shake them now from their spiritual funk, if I could use that term. And in addition to that, what we have is, if that wasn't enough, we have now Jesus emphasizing that and sending now this now healed man to proclaim what he has done, to show that saving human life and that the image and likeness of God is valuable. So we have these two things here. One, that through suffering, we begin to be introspective and look at, why is this happening to me? And sometimes we reevaluate what we feel is important. And then we have somebody that comes into our life and reminds us what is important. And that's what we have here in this story, is this wonderful idea of how suffering can be helpful. Sometimes what we see is just the suffering itself. And so we ask, God, why have you given me this suffering? Why am I doing this? I didn't do anything wrong. And sometimes the purpose of that is to awaken us out of this sleep that we're in. And that's the message that's being sent here. Now, to close this, I'd like to read something from Bishop Anthony of Sarazos of Russia, who asks us to look inside ourselves and to not be too harsh on these people and to recognize something of ourselves in this. So I want to read that directly from what he said so that we don't lose anything in his translation. The salvation of one man at such a price, at such an impact on our wallets, nor do we agree with this. We read this story with horror and we think, how is this possible? But in actual fact, are we really willing in every individual case to sacrifice our prosperity, our property, so that one person becomes well, re-enters into life, and then regains consciousness? Not always. And therefore, let's not reproach these Gardanine people too much, but think about ourselves. How would we answer if all of a sudden our property, everything we had put our hopes on in order to grow rich and to live well, were taken away from us so that the one person could become normal, healthy, and begin a new life? What would we say to this? Let's reflect on this, because we are not better than these people in everything. And I think that that's a wonderful kind of wrapping up of the end of this story to kind of help us put into perspective the loss of creation and then understanding now the seeming ungratefulness of these people.